love and sentiment goes out from myself to the entire community, which has seen some pretty impressive growth.
Insane when you think, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, that was sitting at around about 500,000. So yeah, we're still, sitting at around 1.3 million active users per month. We continue to grow by users by the 20 to 30,000 on a daily basis. I believe the other day we just cracked, 1.3 or 1.4 million active users. So
yeah, I think the last number we had was 2.6 million.
So what's the real number? Ever since we got that immediate scan data, which shows there are only 600,000 wallets that hold collectibles, there has been some FUD. Some people attempt to explain this, but from what I can see, there is still quite a bit of misunderstanding. In this video, I'll dig into what is the truth, the meaning behind these numbers, and address the FUD so that when this topic comes up again, you'll know exactly what it truly means. Let's get into it. Ecomi belongs within a genre of companies called SaaS companies. Not sassy, SaaS, software as a service. I was the accountant for a small tech company, a SaaS company about 10 to 12 years ago or so. Now these companies have their standard financials and notes and analysis to those statements, all of which I produced, but they also have SaaS-specific metrics, which I also produced, and they are supplemental to the main financials. These help analyze your business with key metrics across similar businesses within the same industry. It allows these companies to understand at a much deeper level how they are actually performing, because these standard financials, sometimes they don't tell the full story when it comes to these types of businesses. A key variable in many of these SaaS-specific metrics is your active monthly users. There are a bunch of other ones, but today we'll focus on just the active monthly users. Now, active monthly users, it's not just a number, it's not just a flex to inflate your numbers for the sake of showing off. It's part of calculating key metrics, and it's almost as important as calculating your traditional financials. Let's look at some of the FUD. One of the things I see is, Ecomi deceived us and their user base numbers are a lie, and there's also Veve is so small that they're worse than they're portraying. Now, to answer that, let's first understand how Ecomi defines a user.
the user is that you need to be participating within the app at least once.
So that's minimum one interaction within the month, and an interaction could be something as simple as a click, a swipe, or a scroll. That's fair because those are standards across the industry. I know some people might be thinking some criticisms about that. Firstly, that criteria isn't what it should be, in the sense that it shouldn't count such simple actions. That those actions are too basic, and it's not real users who are doing such simple things as swiping, scrolling, or just pressing a button or two. Now, I find these criticisms ultimately lead to the thinking that one number, the user base number, is not real, and the wallet holder number that we get on a Mutascan is somehow more real. Firstly, as I mentioned before, the user base measurements are and criteria are used across the industry. What exactly is used in terms of a swipe, a scroll, how many swipes or scrolls can vary between different companies, but it generally involves a minimum amount of interaction within their platform or product. It's kind of similar to websites. Sure, the amount of products sold on your website is an important metric. It absolutely is. These are numbers that flow to your financial statements as revenue and eventually cash or some other receivable. Now, people are forgetting the amount of visitors on your site is also very important. Sure, it's not a part of your bottom line, but it's an important stat. It's an important metric that indicates revenue potential. These are people who are significantly closer to purchasing your product from your site versus anyone else. And if that number is high, you just need to work on conversion. High website traffic is analogous to the user base numbers, and they're also important because it opens up the potential for advertisement revenue. Websites do this all the time. And maybe we could see potentially advertisement banners on Veve. As long as they're not the annoying pop-ups, I'd be okay with them filling up some blank space with a banner to help generate more revenue. But as you can see here, website visitors and sales, it's similar to how we should view the user base numbers and NFT holders. They're both important, just for different reasons. One is not more important than the other. One last note it's reported that 95% of website visitors do not buy your products. So the proportion of visitors to customers will always be skewed towards those just browsing. Now that we've established the importance of both those figures and what they are, let's critique the validity. The main issue here in the 2.6 million active monthly users is how many are bots. I do think we still have a number of bots reported in that number. But let me make this very clear. I do not know how many are actual people or how many are duplicate accounts. I do believe there are still some bot accounts in that latest 2.6 million users. I do believe we will get a truer number in June because if we look at the timeline, NFT and gem transfers were stopped around April the 1st. It's possible the bots still tried to do their thing in early April. Since then, I feel like it felt like drops were a lot easier. It's mimicking what happened with Top Shot, both in what they implemented and the improvements in the overall customer experience with regards to the bot measures. It feels like they halted the bot activity enough so that it's not affecting the users to an excessive and a noticeable amount. So that was done in April. So in May, we may get a full month of these measures in place. So that's why I said in June, when they report on the May numbers, that we may get a truer number. In addition, when KYC is implemented the month after, whenever that is, I do think we'll get an even truer number. One more piece of FUD that I want to address before I get into my guesstimates of what the numbers are. Now, did the Ecomi team lie to us regarding these numbers? Did they give out these numbers knowing that they could be inflated by bots? I think that is the opinion of some. I like to put myself in their shoes, and being someone who did put together these metrics in the past for other SaaS companies, I have a different perspective. And to answer that, we need to break this down into intent and reasonability. Now, when they realized that bots were becoming an issue, bot prevention was not an internal strength, so they had to outsource it. Let's take a moment to look at bot protection software. They're advertised as solutions to bot problems. That's an issue here. So when they realized that bots might be a problem, they outsourced it to a company, paid them $10,000 a month for it, with the expectation that it would solve the problem. Would it solve 100% of the bots and give the exact numbers of user count? Definitely not. But would it be reasonable? I'd personally guess at that point in time, given the promises of bot protection ads, it was reasonable. Of course, it's easy to say with the luxury of hindsight that we needed more, but at that time, I believe it was reasonable. That's the key word, reasonable. Reasonability is used in many professional standards. In accounting, you don't report on every penny. If your budgets and revenue are in the millions, it's more than reasonable to report or to round things to the nearest tens or hundreds of thousands. It would take too much manpower and would be unreasonable to count every penny. In law, at least in tort law, which are civil cases, you judge things on what a reasonable person would do in a situation. So were they perfect? No. But they were reasonable in their assumptions and their actions at that point in time. Now, did the Ecomi team have the intent to deceive the public? In my mind, they didn't. In my mind, they didn't have the mens rea. They did what was reasonable in that situation to prevent the bots. And in hindsight, we know it wasn't enough. But if there's anything that indicates their intent, when things escalate, they adapt with more measures. So what are the true numbers? As mentioned earlier, I do think that in June we will get a truer number of the user base. I do think the number will drop a little bit as these bot accounts churn. I don't think it'll be that crazy of a drop, and I do think it'll be temporary. The current count of users is about 2.6 million, and I do think it'll drop a bit, but it will be offset, in my opinion, by other factors, which I'll get into in a minute. For those who say the user base proportion to the core NFT users are way off, again, I already established those two measurements are valid and used for two different things by companies across the industry. But if that's still a criticism, let's look at Pokemon Go. Really, we could look at any game, but since those two platforms seem to always be tied together, let's look at them. 3% of the user base on Pokemon Go pull in 70% of their entire revenue. 3%. So large majorities of people who download the app don't make any purchases. It's just whales doing whale things, and that's across all games. Now let's look at NBA Top Shot for a minute. In January, they had 1.1 million active monthly users, and at that time, they also had 600,000 wallets holding NFTs. Right now, it's about 684,000, but I'm going with the January numbers because I don't have the active monthly users today. So that's just under a 2-to-1 ratio. With Ecomi, we have 2.6 million users and 600,000 unique NFT holders. That's 4-to-1, much higher than the 2-to-1 with Top Shot. That sounds a little high, and I do think that might drop. I'll get into some offsetting factors in a bit, but pure speculation here, I think that should be around 2 to maybe 1.8 million, so like a 3-to-1 ratio. Again, just pure speculation on my part here. I do think we would have a higher ratio than Top Shot, so higher than 2-to-1, simply because of the higher number of verticals and thus higher number of fan bases we appeal to. Plus the fact that you cannot cash out, in addition to the Apple and Play Store fees, all of which discourage people from buying after downloading the app. So what will increase the user base and offset dips if there are any? I think there will be an uptick because of the marketing that we've seen with, well, one example are the promo codes. We recently saw the partnership with AMC. Everybody in the US who has a ticket to that premiere of Jurassic Park is potentially a new user, assuming that the existing Veve fam didn't buy out all the tickets. We saw it with Marvel Unlimited, where I got a secret rare comic, which I have sold a long time ago, and I'm sitting on the gems to hopefully buy the dip. There are a ton of new shows coming to Disney+, and without a doubt there will be some time drops aligned with these shows that will help both platforms. These will help out in the interim as we continue to build out the product and weather out this NFT, metaverse, and crypto bear market. And while we are in this downtrend, I'll still be here trying my best to shed light on some of the misunderstood topics in the space. I hope now you can understand the importance of differentiating between a user and a holder. They're two different things. They have two different measurements, but are equally as important. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and following, and I'll see you in the next video.